Poveglia Island is said to be the most haunted island on Earth because of its disturbing history. Some go as far as crediting it as the most haunted place in the world. It's known as the Island of Ghosts because of the massive amount of people who died on this small island. This 18-acre island is located in the Venetian Lagoon in northern Italy, between Venice and Lido. There's a small canal that divides the island into two separate parts. These days, the buildings continue to fall apart and are being taken over by nature. The story of Poveglia starts back in the year 421, when residents from the mainland fled to the island to escape from barbarians. Because the island was so small and away from the usual path, it was often overlooked, making it a safe haven. The population grew on the island until Venice came under attack from the Genoan fleet. The people of Poveglia were moved to Giudica, an island in the Venetian Lagoon. For years, the island sat uninhabited. Then, in 1348, the bubonic plague hit and spread through Europe's population. The bubonic plague is an infection of the lymphatic system, mostly spread by being bitten by infected fleas from small animals, or from exposure to body fluids from a dead plague-infected animal or person. The bacteria enters through a bite and becomes localized in a lymph node and causes the lymph node to swell, commonly found in the groin, but may occur in the armpits or neck. The buboes develop hemorrhages, which result in the death of the tissue. Symptoms appear 2 to 7 days after getting bitten. Other symptoms include chills, malaise, fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, muscle cramps, seizures, and gangrene of the toes, fingers, lips, and tip of the nose. Not long after the arrival of the Black Death, Poveglia Island was used to quarantine victims of the plague. Because the island was far enough away from the mainland, it was assumed dumping the sick people there would help stop the spread. But it didn't help, and Poveglia soon became an island of death. Thousands of sick people were brought over. Those who were sent there did not survive and died a miserable death. Even if you managed to survive the plague, it was a one-way trip to the island. For years, people were dumped off and left to die. After the plague died down, the island was again abandoned. Then in 1630, the bubonic plague returned, and Europe was again ravaged by this deadly disease. And again, Poveglia Island was put into use. But this time, it was used as a place to dump those who died. Bodies were dumped into huge pits and then burned. They thought burning the bodies would stop the spread of the disease. But it didn't help, and the disease continued to spread. If there was even the slightest suspicion that someone was sick, they would be shipped off to the island. People that were still alive, and some who weren't even sick, were thrown into the pits with the dead, and burned without a second thought. As many as 160,000 corpses were accumulated during the time of the Black Death. After the disease died down, Poveglia was again abandoned. People from the mainland stayed away from the island. This is when the rumors started of the island being haunted. Later, in 1922, a psychiatric hospital was opened on the island. And, like many of the institutions like this in the 1900s, people were sent away to the mental hospital with any sign of mental or physical illness, and many were mistreated and ignored by the workers. Many doctors there had little or no training, and often ended up severely injuring or killing their patients. One of the doctors there was known for torturing his patients. He would do cruel experiments on the people, looking for ways to cure them. He would do these experiments against the will of the patients, used no anesthesia, and had no concern for sanitation. Supposedly, he would take his favorite patients to the hospital bell tower, where he performed the cruelest experiments. The screams of the patients could be heard across the island. After years of torturing these poor people, he began to go mad. He started to hear the voices of the people he had killed. Soon he would begin to see them. They would haunt him. And one day, they convinced him to go to the top of the bell tower. There, he either jumped himself, or the spirits pushed him off. Somehow the fall didn't kill him, but left his body broken and in extreme pain. Then a dark fog came in and engulfed his body, slowly choking him to death. There are many reports of people seeing the doctor's ghost wandering around the island. Eventually, the hospital was closed and the island abandoned again. Then in the 1950s, the hospital was turned into a nursing home. The nursing home didn't last long and was closed down in 1968. In the years following, developers tried to renovate the old buildings. A crew was brought over to repair the old hospital building. But not long after they started, they stopped and left without saying why. The locals say they were scared away by the dark spirits that haunt the old hospital. There were many attempts by the Italian government to get a buyer for the island. A family was interested in buying the island to build a vacation house there. They stayed there for one night and left quickly the next day, refusing to say what happened. The only thing known to happen was one of the daughters' faces was ripped open, and she had to get 14 stitches. In 2014, Poveglia Island was almost bought by an Italian businessman for $600,000. But the deal fell through because of the groups that want to preserve the island. Today, Poveglia Island is not open to the public. You can try to get permission from the Italian Tourism Board, but it's not an easy process. Poveglia Island still has grape vineyards. There are people who travel there to harvest the grapes during harvest season. It's been reported that the soil is made up of more than 50% human. It's not surprising that this island is said to be so haunted when you consider the amount of pain, suffering, and death that went on this 18-acre island. Because of how haunted the island is, it has been visited by several paranormal investigators and psychics, as well as author Ransom Riggs. The psychics that visited claimed the energy was so overwhelming and negative that they don't stay for long and never return. One of the most known visitors was the cast of the TV show Ghost Adventures. They claimed that during their overnight stay, one of the crew said he was possessed by a demon, and the crew had to use holy water on him. Poveglia is said to be haunted by people who died of the plague and those who were tortured in the asylum. There have been reports. Ghosts have been seen roaming the halls of the abandoned asylum and around the property. Many people report hearing disembodied screams of agony. When the hospital was still open, patients reported seeing the apparitions of plague victims. The chime of the old bell tower is still heard, even though it was torn down years ago. Some people have even recently claimed that they've seen the ghost of the doctor that fell from the tower. One spirit that is often reported is the ghost of a little girl called Maria. Maria had died of the plague and has been seen for more than 400 years. She's often seen walking along the beach, sobbing. The sound of a wheelchair rolling up and down the hallways of the hospital is said to be a spirit named Petro, who is a double amputee. Riding up and down the halls was said to be one of his favorite things to do while he was in the hospital. A few others reported a terrified young woman who is seen standing in the halls or rooms. And another man, called Federico, is often seen wandering the halls. Other strange happenings on the island have been observed. Doors and windows opening and closing without being touched. Many people report a constant feeling of being watched. Eyes are seen below the surface of the water. A horrible smell of burning flesh has been reported. People and faces seen looking down from the windows of the abandoned buildings. People being pushed down and scratched. Some have even been chased down the hallways. Some say when they first step on the island, they hear a voice telling them to leave the island. Most stay far away from Poveglia, and for good reason. Even fishermen stay away, as the burnt bones of the victims of the plague still wash up on the shores, and they don't want to catch any in their nets. It's probably best to stay away from the world's most haunted island.